But let us lay any fears or doubts we have at rest. Let us look at the day of the financial collapse, or the months following the collapse of paper money that is fast approaching, and what will be the end game for both paper money and your physical precious metals. First of all, paper money in your accounts will most likely be frozen or heavily restricted, as most banks are so heavily leveraged in debt that any money they have will be used to pay off their own debts first. See, gone are the times with bank bailouts this time to save us all from an ongoing collapse. Governments are so broke themselves, they played their last hand after the last collapse. They are so indebted themselves that this forced them to issue new laws for bank bail-ins. This effectively allows banks and institutions to use depositors' funds to fund all their debts if ever the time came when they became so indebted themselves, which they are now. While they are stealing your money, credit of course will dry up. Banks and governments will struggle to pay for their own debts taken out in your name. People will struggle to pay their mortgages or get new mortgages and will find it difficult to even access their funds. You will see a sharp decline in spending, thus destroying the value of most assets which we base our lives on at present. See, we seem to forget from the last collapse was not all the debt or the amount of unemployment that existed. It was the freeze or drying up of credit that brought about the collapse. This is the start of a money collapse. Deflation is when you can't even access money, so assets prices begin to fall and buyers simply disappear. But a last-ditch attempt will be made. Just like last time with credit drying up, governments will be forced to issue more debt stimulus packages and to cut interest rate to keep themselves and the banks afloat and to somehow stabilise the money supply. This will of course fail, as the amount of debt owed is too much at this point in time. Panic and desperation will set in, as it always does. It will force governments to print more and more money. This will not only erode the value of money in circulation, but also create massive inflation, a double-edged sword that will destroy the worthless currency once and for all. Quickly, most will realise anything left in their accounts that they can access will be worthless. Inflation will go to the moon. Those that live with debt will see their payments balloon in costs and interest. Wages, just like today, will never keep up with the rising cost brought about by massive inflation. Most, if not all, will quickly realise that they have been based their lives around was nothing but a lie. Confidence is now lost for paper money. The end game is fast approaching for all paper money. Governments and banks will take drastic measures and will have to create a new currency backed by real wealth, as confidence is now lost in all paper money. An attempt will be made to create a new currency backed by real value. This is where precious metals like silver and gold come into play. The most stable form of currency around for 5,000 years. But this new currency will only have the backing of precious metals. This time there will be no physical currency. We have become too stupid as a society to ever deal with physical precious metals again. Precious metals have become too difficult and require too much knowledge to deal with physically. Banks and governments know this. The end game for physical precious metals begins. To do this, each government will issue promises to their citizens to turn in their physical precious metals for this new currency. Most will comply, as they have bills to pay, food to eat, and what use will their physical precious metals be anyway. Either way, with this new currency, you will be told their new value and to turn them in. You will take this real money, physical precious metals, this real wealth, and convert it into whatever new currency or system they come up with. But this new form of currency will be in digital form. This will allow for even more control over each of us. We know this because it has been done for 5,000 years. A currency collapses, it is once again backed by real wealth, as in silver and gold. This is quickly replaced by a promise of silver and gold in return for paper money. This debt becomes so much that even promises are replaced by nothing but worthless money, backed by debt. Thus creates such disparities in wealth. But next time, we will not even get a chance to own physical precious metals, as they will become so rare and valuable that banks and governments will trade between each other with these physical precious metals, while we are given the scraps from their table. This is the waiting game you are being asked to hold out for. Give up your precious metals for a newer, worthless currency, a more controlled currency. Allow those who have placed their faith in such a corrupt system to suffer, just so we can profit in some way. Sure, you will find a few that resist this change. They will continue to hold and wait for something better, but in the end, they will find they are all alone. This is how you're being manipulated. Accumulate just to give it up in the end for the smell of a belief of a bright future. And most of us would do it. Governments and banks have created such a hateful system that all it does is create a want for something, even though most of us would be happy to live somewhat of a normal life. No matter what system follows this, as long as it's in the hands of governments and banks, we all lose.